We know what our history was with respect to race in America, and to look at present inequality with respect to wealth and health outcomes and levels of crime, it's completely natural to say, okay, wait a minute, we've got something to atone for here, and what can we do to help? I'm totally sympathetic with that. DEI at the level of who gets into medical school is the wrong way to help, right? To lower the standards so that when you walk into an office and your doctor's black and you have to think, oh my God, I know that for the last 15 years, standards have been lowered at every stage along the way to promote more black cardiologists and black neurologists. And now now I'm left thinking, does this guy or gal have lesser qualifications than the Asian doctor that I could go to or the Jewish doctor I could go to? And to know that in many cases the answer is probably yes, given the system we've built, that's awful, right? It's racist to have to think that way, but the fact that you could be justified in thinking that way based on bad policies, that's serving no one's interest, certainly not the black community's interest. So if we're going to put a thumb on the scale, we have to figure out ways of doing it that don't actually destroy what is good about meritocracy, right? Where you know that the person who's flying the plane is actually qualified to fly the plane, and you didn't grade on a curve based on skin color so as to get more black or brown pilots. I mean, that's just, no one wants that. At 30,000 feet, everyone's an elitist. Everyone wants a qualified pilot, right? Everyone, when it's brain surgery for your kid, you're an elitist. You want a qualified brain surgeon. You don't want the DEI version of brain surgery. And when we find out that Asians had to score 400 points higher on the SAT to get into Harvard because of their DEI policy, and then Harvard was correcting for it on the admissions committee by saying that Asians lacked personality, right? And this was their euphemism for how they were going to implement their reverse racism. It's an embarrassment and rightly so, for the whole institution.
It really bears emphasis that these policies don't just hurt the group that is being excluded. It doesn't just hurt Asians or whites or even other minorities who are simply not prioritized because they don't fit into that, model underprivileged group, which African Americans are usually placed in. It actually hurts the African Americans themselves, or I should say blacks, since there's often no differentiation between these two groups of people, which is completely absurd as far as I can tell, considering the huge variances we see in socioeconomic indicators among blacks of different ethnicities. There's a huge problem when you have a public that's incapable, through no fault of their own, by the way, at distinguishing between a black person who got to where they are simply because of their skin color versus a black person who got there because they'd been nurturing their competence throughout their lives. It's a disservice to the competent black person who is now being stigmatized because of some misguided policy. It's a disservice to the non-competent black person who is also being placed in a position where they have no ability to navigate. It's a disservice to all the competent people who spent their blood, sweat, and tears trying to get to that position and were excluded because of their skin color. And lastly, it's a disservice to the entire public, who now has to choose between either being perceived as a racist or playing Russian roulette with the services that are being offered to them, depending on the skin color of the person offering those services, and especially when those services have high stakes involved.
There's no question that there are inequalities that we want to respond to compassionately. There's no question that there'll still be some amount of inequality left that we ultimately have to convince ourselves we don't care about, right? Because there's just no way to make everything equal all the time. There's no question we want to figure out how to spread the wealth around, but we want to incentivize creative, selfish people to make as much wealth as possible. These are all, there are going to be trade-offs at the margins, but in the current environment, it's very easy to recognize bad policies.